256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome, everyone, to the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm Drew DeArmond. This is Blitz Sports Radio. D Squared here, talking recruiting with you from 9 to 10 a.m. As we look forward to talking some national recruiting and really SEC recruiting with a first-time guest. We're going to have Sam Spiegelman on from on3sports.com. He's a national recruiting analyst. Been around the recruiting landscape for many years. He just recently, had a really good piece on Arch Manning and, knows his recruitment very well. He's based out of New Orleans, Louisiana, and, of course, Arch, we know, is some people believe the number one player in the country from New Orleans Newman High School. Committed to Texas, and Steve Sarkisian, helping them bring in one of the top classes in the country. Arch, of course, is an outstanding prospect, has really been around and been on the recruiting radar since his freshman year at New Orleans Newman High School, and so he's very close with his uncle, Peyton Manning, of course, his other uncle, Eli, his father, Cooper. All of them great players at New Orleans Newman High School, all of them going on to the SEC, and we know that Peyton is now a Hall of Famer. I think Eli should be as well. So, and not to mention his grandfather, the one and only Archie Manning, one of the all-time greats at Ole Miss, and a guy that should have had a better pro career, wasn't surrounded by the most talent, but still is beloved in the city of New Orleans, and is one of the class acts in all of football. And so it's going to be interesting to see the career path Arch takes, if he can elevate that Texas program. Certainly he has a lot of star power. He was a guy that Alabama, Georgia threw a lot of resources at trying to get him to commit to their programs, and really that was his top three, was Texas, who he ultimately chose, Alabama, and Georgia. Ole Miss wasn't as involved. I think the relationship there with Lane Kiffin wasn't great between him and the Manning family. So, and Lane's done a great job at Ole Miss, but he considered Ole Miss, but I don't think they were ever going to be on that short list for Arch. So we're going to talk to Sam Spiegelman about Arch Manning and his recruitment, and I know he's been able to track it. It's been very interesting to follow, no question about that, and see the schools that ended up catching his eye the most. And certainly at one point in time or another, he was thought to be a lean to Alabama, then a lean to Georgia. But, and Ole Miss was always there, but I never thought to be serious. And then Texas was always there too. But I think that the relationship he had, starting at his time at Alabama with Steve Sarkisian, and then with Sark's, quarterback coach who also worked at Alabama as an analyst, A.J. Milwee, former Boaz Pirate here in our community, former great quarterback at UNA, and a walk-on at Alabama before coming to the University of North Alabama. I think those relationships won out for Texas. And certainly when you look at Steve Sarkisian, unlike Dirtneck Jimbo Fisher, who's a fraud, I think that Sarkisian is absolutely outstanding with developing QBs, outstanding offensive mind. We already saw Texas nearly beat Alabama. Then they lose a heartbreaker to Texas Tech. But again, I still think Sark's got that program going in the right direction. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the Red River shootout, because Oklahoma's luster has certainly quickly dissipated. I mean, Oklahoma coming off of, just two disastrous losses. They, of course, get dominated by K-State and then absolutely eviscerated by, Sonny Dykes and TCU. So Oklahoma is unranked right now. But Texas, this game last year, the Red River Shootout, is the one that kind of turned their season for the worst. They had a big lead. They couldn't finish it. And then they end up going 5-7 and not having the kind of first year that I think was anticipated under Steve Sarkisian. So we'll see, if they can get their revenge and win this Red River Shootout. And if they can, then I think it's going to really help their recruiting, no doubt about it. So we will see. Certainly going to track that game very closely. And again, Texas is a school. Their recruiting is, have been really good going into Sark's, second full year there. And he knows that they're about to go into the SEC. He knows they have to, up their talent level. And so it's going to be a battle of 3 and 2 teams. But I think when you look at their worksheets, that Texas's 3 and 2 looks a lot better than Oklahoma's, because Texas Tech's also lost a couple of games, and they fell short the other day as well. Last week, Texas Tech was upset by Kansas State, but I still think when you look at it, that game could have gone either way. Texas, I think, is still, with the way they played against Alabama, going in the right direction. I said an improvement for Sark would be 7-5, 8-4. I still think this could be an 8-4 Texas team. And when you combine that with the recruiting class they're putting together with Arch Manning, I know they've lost a commitment the other day from a 4-star wide receiver, but I still think Texas is going to bring and put together a very strong class under Sark, and with Arch Manning leading the way. And I think Arch, I don't know that he'll be the quarterback right away. I think Quinn Ewers is going to have a lot to say about that. And we'll see if Quinn Ewers is back, for their game against Oklahoma, because he's been out since he had the clavicle injury, against Alabama. And, that's been, unfortunate for Texas because he was playing so well. But Hudson Card played really good football in a big win at home against West Virginia this past Saturday, a 38-20 Texas win. And Hudson Card was 21-27, 303, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So you got to love the fact that he's playing good football. I thought he played well against Alabama. I think Sarkisian always gives his quarterbacks a chance to succeed, always builds good offenses around them, and I think that's the one thing Arch was very comfortable with, because I think he was making the decision to play for a coaching staff that he trusted in his development, and I think one that he thinks can get the most out of him, and I think Sark can do that. Certainly I'll say this, I think overall when you look at it, the two best choices for Arch Manning would have been to go to either Texas or Alabama. And, once Arch didn't go to Alabama took 2 guys. They took Eli Holstein, and then they decided to take Dylan Lonergan. If they had gotten Arch Manning, I doubt they would have taken 2 guys, just simply because it's tough to get a second quarterback with someone of the just the pedigree of Arch, because he's the 5-star status, the number 1 overall recruit in the country. But the one thing I'll say about Arch, he hasn't done a lot of social media, doesn't do a lot of interviews, and he's handled the process the right way. And I don't think he's going in with the expectations to play right away. I think he understands he may have to wait on his opportunity. Certainly his uncle Peyton did, but of course his clock was moved up because of an injury to Jerry Colquitt that made him play really earlier than he was slated to as a freshman. And then Eli Manning was a backup to Romero Miller for a year before taking over at Ole Miss. And both of them played through their senior years of high school. And, that's it's become even more prevalent